Hi guys, so today we have something a little different. I was supposed to get the Minion speed paint out this week, but some trouble happened, like there was a lot of missing footage. So instead, we're doing a useful Copic colors video. So do take in mind that these colors are what I personally find useful, and it's different per artist. So this is just what worked for me. So something else might work for you, this might not. But a lot of these colors I find really useful and I reach for the most, and I know like a lot of people and some of my friends, like they want to get into buying Copic markers, but they're overwhelmed because there's so much choices and they might not know what colors are good to get, and then if they do end up getting colors, some of them don't blend well or some of them look nice but they're not very useful. So these colors I find are really good and they have really specific uses that are really useful. You'll use them a lot. So yeah, I also want to give a big shout out to Cartoon Girl 7 on DeviantArt, also known as Jaw, because when I was buying my markers, I looked at her list for reference. So a lot of the colors I'm going to state in this video are in her list too, and she's the best. So let's get started. So first off with the E family, like the browns and the skin tones. Yeah, I like to use a lot of browns, but these are really useful. So the lightest color I love is E0000, so 4 zeros, E quad 0. And it's a really nice kind of pinkish base. I don't use it as a base all the time. It's better for Caucasian toned skin. But I find that it's really nice because it's really light and it can give, it gives a nice subtle effect. And then my favorite skin color of all time is E50. It's eggshell. It has this yellowish color which is really good for Asian toned skin. As you can see, it's really light too, but still darker than E0000. So that's why I like to use the E quad 0. So yeah, it looks really yellowish, and then I'll blend it out with E51. Slightly darker, but not overwhelmingly dark. And oh my god, my markers are dying and that's why they look a bit splotchy. I need to refill them soon. And then I like to use E21 to shade, but I find it's not necessary. Like if E51 is as dark as you want, it's totally fine. This is like probably overkill for some. And then E70, this is a magical color. Like I love to use it on different stuff because it desaturates it so well and creates a sense of depth. Like normally if you shade with just these colors, sometimes it looks flat. So adding this, especially in parts where, for example, the hair meets the skin and then like under the nose and the chin, it can really add a sense of depth. So that's really nice. And other browns I find useful are E40 and E42. This is more of an ashy brown, like think Elsa. Really light. And then E42. Yeah, so they blend together pretty nicely. And then other browns I like are E34, E25, E47, and E77. So E34 is this kind of, and I can't describe it if it's coppery or it looks kind of like coffee. So yeah, and then E25 Caribe Cocoa is also one of my favorite E's. It's a really nice brown and it's versatile because you can use it for dark skinned people or for brown haired people. So yeah, they blend together pretty nicely. And then E47 dark brown to shade. It depends on the lighting, but sometimes I like to shade further with E77 because it's really dark and desaturated, but sometimes it's overkill. Like you can just stop at the third color and it's okay. So yeah, so these are some of the E's I like. Yeah. And then okay, for the yellows, I like to use, I have 5 favorite yellows. So yeah. So my first favorite yellow is Y0000, Y quad 0. And it's really nice because it's really light yellow. Yeah, and sometimes I like to add a yellow glow to my drawings, and Y00 is kind of too dark sometimes, but it's still really nice. You see, they blend nicely. And then I'll skip over to Y13. You don't really need Y11, I think. Like, most of the time you can't even see the difference. So you can blend it out. And then Y15 for your darkest yellow. Like, I don't go until 17. If I want to darken a yellow, I'll usually skip over to orange. Okay, I know it's a bit advanced, but like, yeah, if we go to orange, like, I'll do this thing where, oops, wrong tip. I'll do this thing where you tap the tips together. This is a really handy tip so you can maximize your amount of Copics. And then, see, it blends really nicely. I find that shading with a bit of orange is better than just going with darker yellow. And I have Y21. I really like this yellow because it's good for gold and flowers that are not as saturated as this, because sometimes this can look artificial. And it's really nice to do gold tones with Y21 because you can shade it with E34. This is a trick I use a lot. A lot. Yeah, so just blend it in and then go with 25, and yeah, you have a really convincing looking gold. You just lighten up a bit to maximize your color. So yeah, I find that it works better for gold rather than using such a bright yellow, but it depends on the lighting. So yeah, these are my favorite yellows. And then moving on to oranges. I don't really use a lot of orange, so I only have 3 oranges. YR20 yellowish shade. It's a really light yellow orange, and I find that you can use it for skin or for warming up yellows. Like, see, it looks warmer now. So yeah, it's a really versatile color. And then I like to use YR02 light orange for a base. Like, apply it really lightly, and then shade it with YR15 pumpkin yellow. This is my favorite orange. It's really useful. It's almost the only orange you really need. Yeah, they blend together really nicely. And if I'll shade orange, it's the same with yellow. I won't shade it with just pure orange, so I'll probably mix in red or brown. Like, if I mix in E34, yeah, see, it's gonna blend more nicely than if I use like a darker orange. So yeah, so those are my favorite oranges. I don't really use a lot. And then reds. I'm also not a big fan of reds, but they're surprisingly really useful. YR00 pinkish white. So this one is really handy for blush or light pinks like dresses, flowers. Yeah, blush. I don't add blush to my characters a lot, but still really useful. And then R21 Sardonyx. This is my favorite pink because you can use it for flowers, or I commonly use it for the mouths of characters when you can see the tongues. I'll use it, and then I like to desaturate it with E70, the magic color. Works really good. And then I'll use R24 Prawn. This is a basic red. Oh wait, I don't commonly blend them together, so let's make a different swatch. So yeah, so that's the red. And then I'll shade with R37 Carmine. Okay, and then kind of blend it back because it looks really harsh. And then R59 Cardinal for my darkest red. This is my favorite dark red to shade with. Like, Cardinal is super versatile. And as you can if you can see, like, the color, like, it's lighter and more saturated, and as I shade, it's darker and less saturated. That's because I'm moving a few digits below. Like, this is 24, and then this is 37, and then this is 59. And I find that moving with the saturation scale helps add more depth to the drawings versus, say, shading in R21 and then 24 and then 27 and 29. It can make an image look flat, so it's better to vary the saturation and make it lower as you get darker. So and then I'm just going to lump red violets and violets in the same group because I really don't use them a lot, but the ones I do use a lot are very similar. So this is RV91, RV95, V91, and V95. Yeah, exactly the same digits. So these colors I find are really useful if you have a certain lighting you're going for, because this one is, if you have like a reddish violet light and then you want to add this pop of color to white stuff, this is really useful. And then RV95 for darker colors, like their colors, when you look at them you think that they aren't useful, but they surprisingly are. I reach for them a lot and I need to refill them soon. And then I also use V91 and V95. These are also really handy vials. They're slightly different from the RVs, but not super different. So if you can only afford to get one of them, then just get one of them. I find that the violets are really useful when shading skin. Like if you don't want to use E70, you can also use violets because it desaturates the color. So, and I find that adding a hint of color to the shadow makes the image pop too, versus just shading with gray or a darker color. So yeah, that's really nice. So yeah, these are really useful. And then moving on to the cooler side of the spectrum, for blue violets, I have 3 blue violets that I use a lot. I use BB20, BB25, and BB29. So 20 is really light. It's really light, desaturated violet, and it's good for shading like white clothes if you don't want to shade with just gray because it can look boring. And then BB25 is, sometimes you can blend it out, but I don't really use them together. BB25 is good for coloring characters with purple hair, like dark violet, or characters that have black hair but it's slightly leaning towards a purple tone, like for example Kageyama from Haikyuu. And then I'll shade with BB29. So yeah, those are really useful colors. I don't usually use the brighter blue violets a lot, but they have their uses with specific characters and flowers. Just for me, these are really useful and handy. Okay, and then moving on to the blues. I have a lot of blues. I feel that they're the most useful color family for me. And there's so much you can color with blue. You can color skies, you can color seas, and then hair color, eye color, clothes. It's really useful. So the first one of my favorites is B0000, so B quad 0. And it's a really light blue. Like, see, so light. You might not even be able to see it on camera. But it's really useful as a base color for skies, because I find that when you start coloring skies, you don't want to go too dark at once, or else the sky quickly becomes dark, and if you make mistakes, it's harder to correct. So yeah, and then I like to follow it up with B00, just to create that nice gradation effect. Of course, it still depends on the mood of your sky. Like if it's not sunny, of course it isn't going to be this blue. And then you have B02. So this is also one of my favorites. See, it looks really pretty. And then if I want to shade darker stuff, it's not the sky, I'll actually move on to B14 instead. So yeah, moving one down on the saturation. So yeah, it's this really nice kind of basic blue. Blending. Yeah, just reinforcing some blends. And then when I shade B14, I'll move on to B37. So I'm moving 2 steps down the saturation because we went from 14 to 37. And then this is a really nice kind of dark blue but not too dark. Yeah, it's a really handy color, like B37, just basic. And then B41 is a color that's a bit out of the spectrum, but it's also surprisingly useful if you're going for a different tone of blue, or if you want to shade, let's say, white clothes, and then you don't want to use this kind of blue. Like this one fits the lighting better. Really good. And then for jeans, like my most essential colors for jeans are B97 and B99. B97 is a really dark desaturated blue, and then you can use B99 to shade. And you don't just have to use this for jeans, it's also useful for characters with hair that are black but have a slightly blue tone. If you find that it's still too dark, you can also use B95. I just don't think it's really essential compared to 97 and 99. And we're trying to keep the color count down, as difficult as it is. So yeah, these are really useful blues for me. Like you could get these and live for a while without buying other blues. So yeah, super useful. And then for greens, I personally don't use green a lot because I haven't done characters with green hair. I'll probably do one soon. And I haven't colored grass a lot actually. Most of my favorites are from the YG family, because I find that yellow greens tend to look more natural than greens, but I still have some greens here. So yeah, I like to use YG11. It's a really light, it's kind of better for character designs. And then for natural looking grass, I use YG25. See, it's a really nice yellow green color. And then YG67 for those darker grass. They blend really well, and I think with 3 colors you're pretty set. Like if you want lighter, you can add a hint of yellow. And then I like G82 and G85. This is mostly for green stuff with different lighting. Like this is pretty desaturated, so it's better to use it for rainforests, or if you have scenes that aren't that sunny and bright, it's probably more natural. I'd shade it with the darker G. I think this is like a G99. I just don't have mine right now. But yeah, these are the greens that I like to use. And then lastly, the grays. With the grays, I suggest just sticking to one family. Like if you have to get like a few Copics, like only one family of grays will do. Yeah, but I like to use 3 families of gray, and my favorites are like W1. It's good for certain lighting, and then I'll share with other warm grays, but I don't use warm grays a lot, so they're not the most useful. But my favorite light gray is C1 because it's a really light gray, but it's got some oomph to it, to say. And then I'll shade it with the neutral grays. It's not really obvious that they're from a different gray family because the cool one is really light. I find that the neutral grays are better if you only get one family because they have less of a bias compared to other colors, and you can save money. And a tip for buying grays, or with any color really, is to only like get colors that skip by 2s. Like you don't have to get like C1, C2, C3, C4. You can get like C1, C3, C5, C7. It probably won't make much of a difference. That's what I do, and I don't really see the difference, and you can use the money to get other colors instead. But the grays are really nice because you can do a lot of stuff with them. So yeah. So those are my favorite and useful Copic colors. They might not be what works for you, but they work for me, and if you try them and you happen to like them, let me know. I want to. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you have suggestions for the next video, just comment down below. Thanks for watching. Bye!